So today we've got another case from HellCracks, but this time it's not a gaming case and it isn't a fractal torrent lookalike. It is actually classed as an office PC case. And I know from reading the comments on some of my videos that a lot of you out there actually like this kind of thing. So I thought, why not give it a go, take a look and see what it's all about. Now I know for most of you out there you prefer the gaming PC look, but there are a large proportion of people that actually prefer something a little bit more subtle, and that's where one of these cases actually comes into its own. This case is actually from a company in the UK called HellCracks, and we recently took a look at one of their other cases, one that was actually designed a little bit more for the gamer, but they do actually build cases that are generally for the office type of PC. It is the HellCracks CB301Dv2, and I know what you're thinking. When they've got a name like that, of course, then they're going to be a budget case, and that's exactly what this is. But they have given it a little bit of a tag because they do call it the Silent Classic. When it comes to budget, this case will actually cost you about £30, which is obviously a very good price, but of course you're going to be missing a lot of features. It is a no-frills case, so we don't actually get any kind of glass window, we get no front mesh, we don't even have any mesh on the top. It is purely a case that you would use just to kind of just store your PC away, but it does offer some features that a normal office PC won't. In actual fact, about the only features you get are thumb screws for the actual side panels. You've got one here, and you've also got one here, but in general, it's pretty much just a standard case. The thumb screws do come off just like this, and then when we get on the inside, we'll show you some of the extra pieces that it actually comes with, some things that you don't necessarily get. The side can be removed simply like any other side by just sliding it across, unclicking it out, popping that down there. And as you can tell from the inside, it's a pretty general layout. We do have a basement in this case, so you can actually hide away your power supply. It takes an additional feed from the bottom for the power supply. So again, just like many modern cases, that's exactly what you've got to be able to feed air through your power supply. It's got some nice chunky feet on the bottom, so it will actually lift it up quite a bit to get that. On the inside, it is big enough to fit up to an ATX motherboard, which is actually quite nice. It will fit quite nicely in there. Although I'm not quite sure that you'll actually fit something like an eATX in there. I bet you could actually modify this to be able to do it, but it's not like a common size anyway, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. We do have all the cables for the front I/O, and we have two placements on the inside, here and here, for a couple of SSDs. When it comes to cooling, there isn't that much from the front. As we can see, there is actually no mesh paneling on the front of this. It's purely going to get its cooling from these little kind of ridges on the outsides, and there's one either side of it, so you're going to get some kind of airflow through there. And then on the inside, we can actually see that we can fit up to 3 120mm fans, as well as a 120mm in the back. It does actually come pre-fitted with a 120mm fan, although I probably wouldn't use that one. They're usually pretty cheap fans in these. And if you are trying to build something into a system like this, you probably want something that's really, really quiet. So stocking it out with a bunch of Be Quiet fans or something like a Noctua would actually go great with the kind of design. As I mentioned before, you don't get any kind of meshing on the top. There's no kind of fan placements or radiator placements, so that's going to limit the cooling that you can put in this system. But for those of you that actually don't want anything on top, it's probably a good option for you. But then we have, of course, the front I/O. Being a budget case, of course, we don't come with USB-C, but we do come with everything else that you need. We've got a power switch, which is it's like one of these spring-loaded kind of switches, a little bit old school, but it looks quite nice. We have a reset switch, which is exactly the same kind of feel. It's a spring-loaded momentary switch. Then, of course, we've got a couple of status LEDs. We've got one for your hard drive activity, and we've got one for your power. We have two USB 2 connections, a headphone jack and a microphone jack that are separate, and then of course a USB 3 connection just there. There is also a blank on the other side, which could be used for some kind of USB or something like that, but it's just a blank. They've not actually included anything in there. When it comes to the back as well, it's a removable panel just like the front. All we need to do is just undo these thumb screws on the sides, and it should just slide straight out exactly the same as the front one. We've of course got one at the top, we've got one at the bottom here. That's usually enough to be able to hold a panel on, and they are nice little plastic screws with a little kind of screw head in the top, so if you do get them stuck, you can always use a screwdriver for leverage, and then it simply just slides off there, just like that. Unlike many office type PCs that I've actually taken a look at in the past, this one actually does come with some decent kind of area for cable management. Of course, it's not really that useful for the front when you generally tend to hide the cables in the back so you can't see them through a glass window. But for those of you who want pure airflow through the system, you don't want any cables getting in the way. So of course, you're going to cable manage them in here. And there is plenty of room to do that. There is about an inch gap at the back here for any kind of cabling, and you're pretty much going to fit everything in there. Of course, your power supply will be down here. And then under here, we do have a little caddy for extra hard drives and SATA drives. There's enough space on there for either two 3.5 inch drives or one 2.5 inch drive, as well as a 3.5 as well. So you can kind of build up the combination of storage that you want, and you can actually fit quite a bit in it. There is in fact actually a plating here, which looks like it should actually have some kind of attachable kind of tray, but they don't actually include it with the case, or at least it didn't come with ours. But that would have been nice to see, because it would have meant that you could have actually stored even more drives on there. But apart from that, maybe it's just somewhere to be able to stick something. When it comes to cable management ties, there are plenty around. We've got a lot of ties here, 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 up at the top and all the way down the side there. So you can actually pin your cables down if you need to. And then there's plenty of holes in the back plate for getting your cables through. We've got three big ones at the front here, which obviously we can run the front I/O cables through the top one. We've got two extra little ones here. So if you are using a mini ITX board, you can actually get your cables through a little bit higher than actually through the bottom, so it kind of saves and cable manages them too. And then of course, if we turn it around, you should be able to see two kind of big holes in the front here and here, which is obviously, if you've got an ATX board, that's where your cables are going to come through. Now this case is extremely basic, and of course it's got some of the most annoying things on there. When you actually take the front off, which is pretty simple, you just pull it from the bottom and it just clicks off like that. You can actually see that the front I/O is on the front itself, so you do have the cables coming through the case here, which can get a little bit annoying sometimes, particularly when you're fitting fans and things, if you need to replace a fan once you've done your cable management, because of course you've got to be able to get them off too. What we would normally do is kind of run them through the system, pin them all down, and if you need to change a fan or something, you're gonna have to take all that apart. But as you can see, there's plenty of space on here for up to three 120mm fans, and they've also got the extended brackets for any kind of 140mm. I would suspect you can only fit about two 140mm here, but generally that's actually enough. If I was to build into this case, I would probably run three 120mm, because that way at least you're feeding extra air to the bottom if you've got any hard drives in there, as well as two nice big fans that are actually pumping air into the system, and obviously it will be drawn out of the back. That will create a positive airflow, so you won't get much dust inside this case, which is probably why as well they haven't actually included any kind of dust filtering on the front or even on the plastic panel itself. So you do need to be aware of that if you are going to have something like this, that there are no additional kind of dust filtering apart from what's on the power supply. You might want to install something yourself, particularly if you're going to have this machine running for a long time and sitting in a corner or something, because otherwise it's going to get really, really dusty, and that could affect airflow and components and stuff later on. Now, of course, many of you are asking, why would you even pick a case like this? It's £30. You can get actual gaming cases for about £30. And the answer is actually quite simple. A lot of people like this kind of design because it allows you to hide a lot of things away. If you are recasing something like an old Dell Optiplex or even just a HP workstation, sometimes they're not the best looking kind of components and you want to hide them away and get some other kind of benefits. And one of the benefits to a case like this is obviously how quiet it will be. And to help with the acoustics, if you actually take a look at the side panels, they are actually fully fitted with acoustic padding. Now this padding is actually quite high quality, and I would kind of suspect that it provides most of the weight to the case as well as the cost, to be honest. But what this is going to do is it's actually going to reflect and absorb any sounds from the system itself, and it's not going to transfer it into the room. So why would you actually have a case like this? Well, again, there are many reasons, and one of them could be as simple as something like a server or even like a media PC. For those people who actually have PCs generating all the media to their TV, obviously running a system like this in the room is actually going to keep the sound down. It's going to be absorbed nicely by the panels. There's no extra holding in there for noise to be able to travel through. So they are some good examples of what you would actually use this for. I would, of course, probably fit some nice silent fans in this if I was going to use it, but I do think you could also build something really cool in here, like a sleeper PC. If we could just load this up with some really super high-end components, it would actually make it a decent one of them. But anyway, that is our look at the HellCracks Classic Silent. It is a case that is reasonably cheap. You can pick them up for about £30. That's obviously not a bad price. It doesn't come with glass windows, no mesh front. It is literally a no-frills kind of case, but again, Some of you like that out there, so I thought it was worth taking a look at. Let me know in the comments below, would you actually build into a case like this? Do you actually have a need for one? I know you guys are out there because I do read our comments, and I know you guys comment about having things that are much more simple and plain. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of content and you want to see what other kind of cases and weird things that we're going to be looking at going forward. And I'm sure as always, we will catch you in the next one.